Well, you guys, it's one of those days, a day where you want to talk to your girls. But if you're a man, it can also be a day that you want to talk to your homies. The point is, this is a day where you're probably going to want to have a journal with you. This is a day where we're going to do a lot of reflecting and digging because we're talking about finding wholeness, y'all. We're talking about going from hurt to healed. And what I was just sharing with them is like, we're all on so many different paths to healing and to wholeness. And so whether you're at the beginning stage of like feeling like, okay, I know there's a better way for me to be living my life. I know that there's a better way that I want to feel internally. Or you're like way ahead and you're like, no, I've got my boundaries together. I've achieved it all. First of all, you probably haven't achieved everything. But we are all on some sort of path in between that. So I hope that what you take away from this is that we are all on a journey. We are all growing. And I hope that this gives you some things to think about. Well, also, I want to say we have a lovely, wonderful woman sitting beside us today. This is our friend, Hillary. We've seen her before. She is an absolutely hilarious comedian on Instagram. So please, we're going to have her information below. Check her out after this, y'all. You're going to be dying laughing. So we have her with us today, and we're really, really excited to get into this.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. This will be fun. Talk and connect with y'all.
Yeah, for sure. All right. You guys ready for this?
Yes.
I'm going to go into the first question.
Oh, my.
Okay, so I'm really excited to ask this question. I'm going to tell you why. So yesterday we were doing a podcast with Pastor Tina and Pastor Ebenezer. And we were talking about marriage. And somewhere along the way, she found this insane quote and she put this out there. And I was like, okay, hold on, back that up. That's everything. She said, and forgive me, sorry to this man, I do not have his information on what this quote is from. Maybe we'll put that information below as well. But there's a quote that says, sin is often the attempt to meet a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. I was like, okay, sin is often the attempt to meet a legitimate need. So it's a real need, but in an illegitimate way, meaning in a way that was never meant to fulfill that need. So I want to ask you guys, what has been a legitimate need in your life that you have sometimes met illegitimately? The faces, Michaela.
Starting off strong.
Yeah. That's how we go. Yeah. No, it's like a lot of marinade, you know? I mean, look, I can kick it off. Sure. If I need to, I can kick it off. Yeah, so I think, as a woman, I think the biggest thing when we are little girls that we kind of need to hear is that we're enough, that we're validated, that, we don't have to perform, that who we are as we are is not only okay, but it is amazing, that it's incredible. So I think that for me, I have incredible parents, I feel like I was raised in a great environment, but I think that just there are so many different layers, once you get into school and you're around other kids. And for me, like I think I talked about it on a previous podcast, but a lot of those schools I would go to, a lot of people didn't look like me. And then it's like, not only are you in those kinds of environments where, maybe your expression isn't necessarily, always seen, but even going to television, and looking at the people on the screen and, them not looking like you or sounding like you or having the same experiences as you, can feel, it can feel tough. And you can kind of feel isolated, or you can feel like, I wish I was more like this. And I feel like for a lot of time in my life, I spent a lot of time wanting to be anything but me, like if I'm completely honest. And it really wasn't until like my adulthood, maybe my late teens, that I was kind of like, actually, I should probably tap into me a little bit more because I'm seeing so much like gold here under the surface, but I'm so busy trying to be everybody else. So I think that illegitimately I was trying to not be me. I think that I would a lot of times idolize, the people that I felt like were celebrated, and try to, either act like them, look like them, or even just being around them, and allowing them to affirm me made me feel good about myself. You know what I mean? Like wanting, the more popular one or the more beautiful person to say that I'm beautiful, because if they say that I'm beautiful, then I must be beautiful. If they say that I'm cool, I must be cool. And then, and obviously when men come along, like you want what, you want from them what you should be doing, internally, which is getting that affirmation, feeling beautiful, feeling seen, feeling like you're wanted. You know what I mean? So that was something I was always looking for it outside of myself, is I would say that. And I never really looked inward until I was probably, in my later teens. So that was my biggest need that I feel like I was meeting illegitimately.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I feel like the way that it looked in my life was similar, but also I grew up in a home that was very broken and suffered a lot of narcissistic, emotional, psychological abuse. And because of that, it put me in a position where I became very self-reliant. What I wanted was to feel like I was enough, but I also wanted, the need I was trying to fill was just to be seen. I really struggled with feeling unseen because I was in an environment where everybody else was seen. Their needs were prioritized at all times. And so I learned, in order to survive, that I had to be self-sufficient. I had to not just be self-sufficient, but excellent. Yeah. And I think it became perfectionism for me. And anytime I would miss the mark that I had concocted in my mind of what it would be, the goal, whatever it would be, to somehow be enough, to be seen, to be valuable, to be loved, I would start to compare myself to others who I thought had that. So I'd be like, well, what are they doing that I can't figure out? Yeah. And it wasn't comparison in the sense of envy, where I'm mad that they have certain things. It was more, I would internalize it and feel inadequate. I would internalize it and be like, I'm just broken. I just am never going to be able to be enough. And so I feel like, I just found myself on a hamster wheel of being busy, being productive, constantly grinding, and if anything, the last few years, especially last year, God has been teaching me, what does it look like to rest in knowing that you're enough without having to do constantly, to let your heart and your love for God produce good works, but not be reliant on your works to feel good. That's been my biggest struggle. And I'm glad to be learning oh, wow, God, this runs deep. This self-reliance runs so deep for me. And I've struggled to realize, wow, God, I thought I've been depending on you, but I don't think I've really been depending on you as much as I could be. Yeah. And so that's now a perspective I have where I was like, Lord, help me to learn and unlearn enough so that I can truly rest in you and have you meet those needs for me. So that's been my thing.
Man, oh man. Yeah, it's so the interesting thing about what you were kind of describing is that it almost came off, the way that you were fixing and resolving it could look productive because you're like, I am doing great. And it's so funny because I can relate to you too, because I feel like when I was growing up, I was trying to get all them A's, girl. I was trying to get all them good grades. I was trying to, achieve, I wanted to be the class president and I had my own club. I was really trying to be out here, you know what I mean? And I was thinking about the other day and I was like, I think that as a kid, measuring, it's so easy to measure your success by what grade did you bring home? You know what I mean? Or what's on your report card? Are you able to get into this school? What's your GPA? And that's such a fast way to feel good about yourself because you're like, if I study, I'm going to get this and everybody's going to be proud of me and I'll have my, my perfect attendance award or my, you know what I mean? And it's I think that had I, recognized when I was younger too, that I didn't have, that I was the one putting that pressure on me. Right. It wasn't even yes, my parents and people want you to do well, but there was actually nobody in my ear saying, you gotta do this, you gotta do that. But I was putting, a double amount of pressure on myself than I needed to. And that it would have been okay if I made a mistake every once in a while. You know, it would probably been good for me actually if I made a mistake every once in a while, because that's how you learn and that's how you grow. So yeah, I relate to that so much. But it can look like production on the outside, but on the inside, it's honestly self-sabotaging you, because you're never able to get to that place, like you said, where you can rest in that, you know, you're enough, you're good. If you didn't do nothing, if you didn't do jack, like you're good. And from that place of rest, now I can be productive in a healthy way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh man. This is going places. Sorry.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah,
I feel like I need to sit on that one.
Yeah, so it was, what has been a legitimate need in your life that you've sometimes met illegitimately?
You still want me to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. A legitimate, I think, so I've always struggled with anxiety. It's actually like generational. So my grandma has really bad anxiety, my mom, and they're both on like medication. And I was on medication in high school, and I stopped taking medication, and I started like smoking weed. And I think I started to like rely on, and I'm from Colorado, so it was legal.
Oh yeah,
you know?
yeah.
But I think I was relying on like that to help with my anxiety. And in my head, I'm like, well, I'm still making good grades, still doing my Bible study. At least I'm not on like medication. Like, what's the big deal if I just, you know what I mean, here and there. So it took me like a long time to, and I'm kind of hard-headed, but it took me a long time to actually like listen to what God was telling me, and even the reason behind it. We don't always need to know the reason why God tells us to stop something, but I think initially like I needed him to give me more, because I'm like, I can't go back into this anxiety state.
Right.
I don't want to be on medication. Like, what's the big deal? And I remember I was in a session, and like I just heard everything like just like slowed down, and I just heard like preserve your brain, and I knew it was like the Holy Spirit, and I was just like, oh my God, like, so it was, that for me was just like a switch. So I realized once I did put it down, I was able to get clarity, and God wanted me to like bring my anxiety to Him. Not that I was before, but I was like almost bringing half of my anxiety to Him, because I was bringing the rest to the ganja, you know? So I had to bring it all to Him. So does that answer the question?
For sure.
Okay,
Totally.
yeah, about that'd be mine probably.
Yeah. That's so crazy, because that had to be like scary to like trust Him and be like, okay, God, if I lay this down, you know, are you gonna pick me up? You know what I mean? Like to risk that, you know what I mean? Like, so, but I'm so glad that you touched on that, because yeah, there are so many like people in situations that they do rely on like a physical substance, you know what I mean? Whether it's weed or we were talking about alcohol the other day, like, you know, and then there are some things that are like, you know, like medical. There's medication, you know what I mean? There are teas, you know what I mean? There are things that you can do, but you know, I love how you said like you felt like you weren't giving Him all of it, because it's so important to make sure that you have a lifestyle where you feel like you can give all of yourself, all of your issues, and you know, because that's the only way that He can fully heal, is if you give Him access, you know what I mean? Like take a chance on Him, give Him a shot, you know what I mean? So first of all, thank you for your vulnerability in that. Thank you for your vulnerability in that, because it's real. Because it's real. Like for real. Like if I'm being honest, yeah, a little weed every once in a while, you know, Colorado, okay, and we're in California, so it's everywhere. So it's not an uncommon thing. But the point is that it is a substance that you become reliant on, and that's when it gets dangerous. When you have a substance in your life that you are relying on. And I'm not talking about like, you know, like if people have a severe mental issue and they need to be on medication, take your medication. But anyway, I'm just saying, but you know, when it is something that you feel like, no, God is going to empower me and give me the strength to overcome this. Like you never want to have to feel reliant on something. You know what I mean? You want to tap into a place and a space where you can feel like empowered.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think that was the tricky part, because in my head, like it wasn't recreational. You know what I mean? It wasn't just because I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, in my day and get high. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was, and I was still productive, but it was because I thought it was serving a purpose. You know, that was making me better.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah.
I used to smoke all the time too. So I relate, like before I fully gave my life to God through high school, that was a big way that I coped with stuff. But then even after, I found myself like, first when I started walking with God, on fire, serving the Lord, and then started going through some family stuff like a couple of years after walking with God. And before you know it, I'm like looking for weed again. And it was a learning opportunity for me because I was like, God, I know you. Like, you've already delivered me from this. Why am I going back to this thing? And, you know, this isn't even against anyone that chooses to use that. It's more for me. Like, I was able to recognize, Lord, there's something in my heart. Like, there's something I'm trying to do with this that I'm trying to run away from, something I'm not processing. I just want to numb out. Can you help me love you more so that I don't go to this thing? And he's faithful to do that, you know? But I think that sometimes as believers, we think like, if we fall back into something, that it means that suddenly we don't love God. Like, I think if anything, it's part of the brokenness in our hearts where it's like, okay, Lord, I must not love you enough or understand your love enough that I am going back to this vice. Like, whatever it is, it could be food, it could be sex, it could be anything. And I think it's just truly being vulnerable with God and not trying to do it on our own. That's like really acknowledging that we need him in order to let go of those things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, it's interesting though, because a lot of times, like when we get trapped in cycles though, in a way, like when you're feeling like, oh, you know, if God, is it something that I'm not doing? There's a shame attached to that too. And the funny thing is that's how he keeps you in a cycle. Cause it's like now, like not only do I have the thing, but I have this like, God, like I am failing you and I am disappointing you and I'm disappointing myself. And you get into this space of shame and it's different than, you know, being broken before the Lord. Being broken is when you're like, God, I'm reliant on you. I do not want to do this. I need you, you know, and I won't let you go until you help me let this thing go. And when you're coming before him with conviction. But shame, I'll never forget when like Pastor Phil came and he was talking about, you know, going before God and going into the presence of God. And he was saying like, you know, like there is a moment where you do have to get on your knees and you have to beat your chest and be like, God, like I did it, you know, like, and I'm in sin and, you know, and I'm convicted and I want to give this away to you. There is a time and a space for that. He was like, but do not stay in that place, because if you stay in that place, you're going to get stuck in the same cycle over and over again, because you have to get up from that place and remind yourself of who you really are. And you cannot attach your identity to your sin and say, God, you know, I'm just, you know, a sinner is all I am. No, you are a son and you are a daughter of God. You are a king. You are a queen. You are a priest. So yes, go before the Lord. Allow him to deal with you and meet you on that personal level. But you have to get up and you have to keep walking with the mentality of, no, this is something that I did and I'm moving forward. Because the shame, it'll just trap you. It'll just trap you. Yeah.
For real.
Mm-mm.
Was that? She said,
So you start thinking like, dang.
yeah, but it's yeah. You got to get that, because you're more than what happened to you. You're more than what you did, and it's not about what you did. It's why you did it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's why the question is, what was the legitimate need that was connected to the thing that you did? Because the need was legitimate. You just executed in a different way.
Right.
Oh God, not Michaela. It's the Lord. No, I think I was trying to really, really think of mine because I didn't want it to be like all over the place. Where do I go from here? Because I feel like there's a few different things. I don't know. I don't want to talk for 30 minutes.
We love to hear you talk. We love to hear you talk.
You're hilarious. Okay, ask the question one more time.
Yeah, what has been a legitimate need in your life that you have sometimes met illegitimately?
I'm trying to think of what the legitimate need is. I will say this. I know that, okay, like growing up and stuff, I was kind of definitely like the girl with like a lot of friends. Like when I was little and stuff like that, I was like the girl with a lot of friends, you know, I was like, oh, she like Taya's so confident, Taya's so this and all that stuff. And I think I remember, I don't really like to talk about this one thing, but I'm just going to bring it up because the podcast.
Let's go, Tay, you got it.
But I remember I was homeschooled for a while, and it was like this program where like I didn't really like have a teacher, so it was like not like a lot of accountability. And I think it was the 9th grade, and I just like that week, like I just didn't do my work like for the whole year. I just like didn't do my work. I was talking to my friends and all that stuff, and so I ended up like not passing the 9th grade and having to redo it. And up until then, I would say I was pretty confident. I was kind of honestly a little cocky. I was a hot mess. Thank God for turning it around. Praise him, he's worthy. I've been delivered. Okay, delivered. But after that, I feel like it really, really rocked my confidence, to be honest. And I'm still finding more ways how like certain like ways that I am right now, I'm like, oh my God, that literally stemmed from failing the 9th grade and feeling like a failure. And then, you know, people trying to, you know, like, you know, no, but you're still this, you're still that, and trying to like, you know, bring me up. But like I would still just be like, no, but I failed the 9th grade, so I'm a failure. And just living in that like constant cycle of just like feeling like a failure. And I think for me, I don't know if it was, so I'm trying to think of what the legitimate need was, but I know that for me, I just distracted myself because I think that I like slowly started to become depressed, but I didn't fully know it, if I'm being honest. Just, you know, like everything, every time I would make an accomplishment or, you know, do something great, it'd be like, yeah, but you still failed, that's still really embarrassing. You know what I mean? Everybody else still graduated earlier than you, and we're like, oh my God, I thought we were in the same grade. Oh my God, this. Like, I think when I graduated, I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anybody because I was like, because I'm 19 and I graduated. You know what I mean? Like, I never talk about this because it's just, it really, I think it still sometimes brings me a little bit of shame if I'm being honest. Yeah. But, so I know, I think for me, I just tried to like distract myself. So it would be like, sometimes it would be, so definitely relationships with men. I was always talking to somebody. If I wasn't dating somebody, always had somebody just trying to, I think, feel confident and feel worthy because I just felt like a failure, you know, or just distracting myself, period, whether it's TV or, you know, like it could be like little things here and there. I think I just distracted myself for a really long time with those things. And, I don't know. And now I'm like, I think I've rid myself of a lot of the distractions. So now I honestly feel like I'm in the phase of facing it. And it's still been really hard. Like I still feel like I'm in the middle of really trying to like get my confidence back up. And it's crazy. I just didn't know how much my life now was affected by that happened in the 9th grade. Because like easily I'd be like, no, that happened so long ago. Like it doesn't still affect me. But then I trace these thought patterns and things back, and I'm like, it literally stemmed from that. And so I can't say that I'm fully on the other side of it right now because I'm not. I'm still working through it, and I'm still just trying to reframe my mind and the way that I see myself and the things that I think about myself, and just trying to press past and like be like, no, Taya, like you can still do it. Like you can, you know, like I'm still trying to, you know, get myself to where I like I need to be. But I know that's my thing.
Love you.
I love you too.
I just appreciate the vulnerability. Because I think that like, yes, you can say like, oh, it was such a long time ago. But I mean, I feel like all of the insecurities that all of us have ever had happened when we were between the ages of like 7, 14. Literally. Like, so, and we're literally living, walking, breathing, like in certain moments, 7 to 14-year-olds, right? Like, so it's a totally legitimate thing and a totally legitimate need to feel like, you know, it's okay, you messed up. You know what I mean? Like you were a kid, you know what I mean? Like, and I think, and we're so hard on ourselves sometimes too, like, you know, about things that happen to us that, you know, either like, again, was an actual legitimate need and we were just going about it in a different way, or we were young, you know what I mean? We were still growing. Like, when do our brains mature? Was it like 28 or 26 for women or something? So, still
over it.
It takes a minute, you know? It's still loading, you know what I mean? So, you know, I'm 27, about to be 28, you know what I mean? So it's still loading, you know what I mean? Like there are things that happened that we are beating ourselves up about that we didn't even have the full mental capacity to make a good decision. You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, it's so deep. And I think that it's beautiful that you also said that, you know, you're still walking through it. Because we're all still walking through stuff. 100%. Like, and the, I don't want to say the sad part. I don't want to say sad, but the challenging part about life is that we will always be walking out our healing journey until we are fully with the Lord. Right. And I think that we have moments of breakthrough in our lives for sure. Yeah. Like, I can mark certain moments where I'm like, I know I was delivered here. I know God met me here, and it's amazing. But I think that as we continue to go through life and more things happen to us and we have more responsibilities, we eventually get married and we have kids, things just show up, you know what I mean? And so we have to be gracious with the idea that we are still walking things out, and then you have to think about things that you've accomplished since, you know what I mean? Like things that you have executed to completion, Taya's a film director, guys. She has actually 2 short films out.
Don't put me on blast.
So is Michaela also.
I was going to say, Michaela's also the uprising.
You've done so many things since then that you've seen to completion, and I think that we sometimes give so much emphasis to the things that we didn't do, and not the things that we did get right. You know what I mean? The moments that we did do well. And so it's like a reframing of the mind that we have to do sometimes. Like, yes, this happened, but first of all, God's grace covered it. You did graduate the 9th grade. Right. You graduated all the things. Yeah. You got your high school diploma. You know what I mean? And we have to really be mindful of what we are giving our mind capacity for. Mm-hmm. For sure. Like, why would I feed into the negative? Like, making conscious decisions about what you think about. Yes. Like, I am not about to spend my time dwelling on this foolishness today. Mm-hmm. I'm going to think about what God says about me. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of it. Thank you, though. Thank you all for this vulnerability. Like, it's crazy. It's just going to get worse, by the way. The next question. Oh, God. The next question is, what is an unhealthy cycle that you have found yourself repeating in your life? And how did you or how are you learning to break it? Oh, my word. I told you it's going to get worse. I told you it's going to get so much worse. Yeah.
I think I have something. So before I go into it, though, like when we were talking about shame, I feel like we can't underestimate how much the enemy uses shame to keep us bound. And there's a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is actually healthy. Guilt is about what we do. And it's when we are aware, like, I did something wrong. Mm-hmm. Shame is about who we are. And it's when we feel like something's wrong with me. And we start to take it in a way where we feel flawed so deeply that it starts to make us feel basically like there's no other option than to just continuously be broken and continuously be flawed. And I think that's how the enemy keeps us bound, by just saying, no, like, this is just who you are. Because that's what he attacks, is our identity.
For sure.
And so the cycle I found myself in, I hate it, but it's definitely with my body image. I am so self-critical at times, but I notice it's not constant. My bad.
No, but
like I've noticed that it's not a everyday thing. It's more of when I'm stressed, when I'm overwhelmed, or when something starts to stir up that sense of shame that is attached to my past.
For sure.
That the way I'm trying to find a sense of control is by like, oh no, like, I'm gaining weight. Let me go to the gym. Let me work out really hard. Or let me eat really clean. And then I'll go to that extreme. And then I'll go to the other extreme of, you know what? I deserve a break. Let me get some Ben & Jerry's ice cream and some Twizzlers and post up on the couch and watch a movie. And, it's all this yo-yo. But I realize what I'm really doing is I'm trying to lean on something external to meet a need internally, And it's a cycle that developed when I was young. Yeah. And a lot of it was because in my home, like, I had 2 extremes. I had like one parent who didn't really prioritize their health and didn't really take great care of themselves, wasn't very mindful of what they ate. And then I had another parent who's like the extreme, super fit, super like, you got to look right at all times. And I think that contrast, I'm seeing it play out in my life, you know, and that narrative of what I started to believe about myself because of that dynamic and the arguments and the disagreements and just the emphasis. And then looking on social media, it's like I've had to, even though I'm in a space of creating content, I've had to learn not to constantly be scrolling because there's, even without wanting to, so much to start making me compare and be like, wow, like right when I start to feel good, like, God, I'm fearfully, wonderfully made. I love who I am. Suddenly I'll see something and the enemy's like, yeah, but you don't look like that. Yeah, but maybe if your waist was a little more snatched, or like, you know, maybe if your butt was a little bigger.
Filters
you know,
are real.
right?
And filters, this is a lie I'm comparing actually.
Yes, it's all a lie. You know, and
lie.
I don't mean that to be in some kind of way like, oh, what was me? It's just, it's a struggle that I've had to pray about. Like, God, I hate this. Like, I'm confident in so many other areas of my life. And I know, like, I feel attractive, but at the same time, I feel like I have to be more.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, but I just got to be a little more fit, or I just got to be a little more thick. I just got to be a little more. And it's like, what am I striving for? What am I really trying to do here? And that's where God's had to meet me and say, it's not really what you're striving for outwardly. It's what you're looking for inwardly. And you're only going to find that in me. Like, you're not going to find that in anything else. And so I've had to really, like, through therapy, through very intentional work on going back to my past, I've had to get to the root of things. Because I'm like, God, this is just a symptom. What is it rooted in? And so that's why I found myself in a cycle, because I wasn't getting at the root. I was just cutting off the top part. You know, and then just one little thing would water it, and before you know it, those symptoms are popping back up. So yeah, that's a cycle I found myself in, but slowly but surely learning how to break. I'm like, okay, you know, like, like,
you know, because you identified, like, first of all, when it happens.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such an important strategy, is like knowing, like, okay, because like for me, like, I know when it's my time of the month.
Girl, that's a whole podcast.
I am not Ren. I am not Ren. I dub myself Renee. Because that is not me. I be like, babe, nah, like I get mad insecure.
Yeah.
I get angry. I get hangry. Actually, I get hangry off my decimal. But anyways, not I get angry. I get angry. But no,
That's
like
great.
strategy. A part of the strategy is knowing when it happens and what are your triggers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are the things that set me off? Because that is a big part of like understanding, how do I break this cycle? Because the enemy don't have no new tricks.
No.
He does not have any. It is like, it will
same
be
old.
like the same exact time frame.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think it is also physiological as well, because the body does remember, like, if you did have a trauma, the body actually does remember around what time of year it was. And so you will actually start to get physically triggered as well. So there are different things that play into it, but also the devil doesn't have any new tricks. And
That's
so
facts.
he will always get you when you are the most vulnerable. And he will definitely use comparison to make you feel worse about the situation that you're in.
Wow.
So you've actually uncovered a lot. And I think that that's really, really strong where you're at right now. Because you're like, okay, I see it. I know when it happens. I know how it happens. And so now I put into practice, like, what's my attack? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, what's my plan of
Yeah.
action? How do I
That's
go
good.
in? But I feel like a lot of people don't take enough time to plan their attack.
Yeah.
How am
Yeah.
I going to attack this?
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I got Post-its on my mirror, declarations. Like, I'm like, I declare like that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Like, I rebuke and reject every spirit of insecurity and inadequacy in the name of Jesus. Like, I'm made by the Most High. Like, you know, a woman with outward beauty is great, but like a woman who serves the Lord is to be praised. Like, I've had to just speak those things because I'm like, okay, Lord, I know the enemy attacks me through this mirror. When I was younger, before like the seeds of insecurity came in, it was the seeds of cockiness. I was like, ooh, she cute. You know, like, you should feel good. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should feel good about yourself. But it was like, literally, like, the enemy's just kind of used extremes where I was a little arrogant. I was a great athlete. And again, it was all about like striving. So I was like, ooh, I look good. And then I got bullied just enough because like you, I was in an environment where I wasn't around a lot of people that looked like me. But then when I got around more Black people, it was like, girl, you ain't got no booty. You ain't got no this and that. And I was suddenly like, oh, very self-aware.
Yeah.
And then it went the other way.
Wow.
So
wow.
anyway, all that to say, I'm like, you know what, Lord, I know like this right here, this little mirror that I look at every day, the enemy uses this as the door to try and get in my mind. But in Jesus' name, no more. Like, let me do what I gotta do to keep my mind in the right spot.
I love it.
So,
Oh, I love it. You said, I'm going to use the very thing, the very object that the enemy is trying to use against me. And I'm going to post. I'm literally going to put the word of God on top.
Right.
That's so good.
That's gangster.
And it's been working. I'm like,
that's
like it helps me to just be like, I
love
don't need to rely on anything outwardly. Like, while we should take care of ourselves, our bodies, our temples, like I do feel like the enemy attacks women so much outwardly because we see it on a regular basis, how much validation and praise and seeming success women get when they look good, And so I think that it's really important for us to be like, but is my heart good? Like, what's going on in my heart? It's good to look good outside, but like, what's going on internally?
This is so good. Taking it off.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So we're talking about cycles. We're talking about like, what is an unhealthy cycle that you found yourself repeating in your life, and how are you learning to break those cycles?
Are we going to go?
Okay.
I have one next, but I feel like when we go first, we'll be taking. Well, no, we'll probably all land in the same place. But I think for me, my cycle has been. It kind of goes back to what I originally said, but I would kind of find myself in these codependent relationships, friendships, and situationships. So I would feel like I would, in order to gain the confidence I wanted, I would just have to get the attention of somebody who was confident. You know what I mean? Or like to find myself, it was almost like, I would find a person who was confident and be like, okay, if I'm with them, like that's kind of, and it's funny because that's not what you're thinking, but that's what you're doing. You're relying on somebody else to be the thing that you actually want to be. And so I found myself just kind of in just situations that I had no business being in college. And then, in middle school through high school, like I had a friend that just was, and I've, worked on forgiving and grace and everything. But, was in hindsight, it was a codependency and there was just a lot of unhealthiness in that situation. But it was because I saw that person as my source of confidence. And as much as I was a Christian at the time, like God was not the source of my strength. Like God was not the source of my confidence. I was getting it through people and I needed that. And so how I broke it, cut them off. Cut them off.
Let them go.
But I broke it. I broke it by, setting up a boundary, realizing that I think a big part of it was realizing what I was using it for. And that it was, although it was a relationship or a friendship, that I was still using that person to get something for myself. And so I think I recognize that's actually not real relationship. And also I need to dig into myself. So I actually spent a little bit of time of solitude. Like I really set aside time in my life to really allow God to meet that need and to speak to that person and to call me out of myself, really, because I feel like I was hidden inside of myself for so long. And so it really just comes back to God. It really comes back to allowing him in that space. And, no matter how ugly you feel like it is, and no matter how embarrassing or whatever you feel like it is, like allowing God to really love me in that space. And before I got into any more, like friendships and, obviously eventually met my husband, like I was like, I really, really want to spend time with me and really, really understand who I am and allow God to affirm the real version of me. And then eventually with that mentality of really knowing myself, then I could qualify what I needed in a friendship and what I needed in a relationship and also what I could offer. Because it wasn't just about getting something. It was about like, this is also what I can offer to you. So, that was a big one for me.
That's good. Mm-hmm. I can kind of relate a little bit, for sure. But I would say, too, that my unhealthy cycle would probably be men, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And, like validation or just, like, the company of men. And I think I realized it kind of when I was younger, but I would, like, make the excuse, and even now, I'm not trying not to, but I would make the excuse of like, I'm not searching, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing anything, like they're just coming to me. Yeah. And, but I realized it was like helping to like fill a void. And like similar to what you said earlier, it was like always in a relationship or always just had someone there and just felt I was either like lonely or whatever. It was just helping fill something. And then I feel like I got to a place where I'm like, okay, like, you know, I'm cool being by myself, you know? And then I moved out to LA. And, you know, definitely, I feel like I kind of slipped a little bit, but it was just, they were everywhere. Yeah. And I was just like, God, please stop sending them. Please stop sending them. And then, you know, because again, I was not searching, you know, and then I realized, I think it was you. You were like, well, yeah, it was you. You were like, God's not the only person that can send a man. Like you know, you're basically saying like the enemy be sending them too. You know?
Absolutely.
And so that kind of helped open my eyes. But it's still hard because I am lonely out here to a certain extent. Yeah. So like it's hard to not fall back into those patterns, especially when like it makes you feel good. You know what I mean? Like apart from just the physical, it's just like the intimacy of like a person that like validates you or like spends time with you, like it makes you feel good, less lonely, you know? Yeah. So I think, honestly, I think I'm struggling with that now, but I'm aware of it. So now I'm just like, when I approach situations, I think honesty and communication is key. Like, hey, I really like you, but I'm not in a season for this. Like, can we be friends? And then also, I just do this thing where like, when I start liking someone, I'm just like, brother in Christ, brother in Christ, brother in Christ. It's like, you know, it's like,
take away this attraction.
That is so funny.
It is hilarious, right? Yeah. But it honestly has really helped me. Because in a sense, it's like I made him. Like I'll hear God be like, I made that person. Yeah. And kind of like what you were saying earlier, like you're still using them to fill a void, even if you don't know it. And like God was like, you need to steward my sons better. You know what I mean? Because like they still belong to me. So I had to that changed the way I viewed men and like relationships and just the people that come into my life. And then learning like some people are going to come into your life. I got a revelation that like there's men that come into your life for you to minister to. Like you're not supposed to like take it to the next level, you know, like minister to them, be there for whatever. And then, or it's just like friendship, you know, and they like move on with it. So like things don't always have to like go to the next level, even if they want it to, because half the time that's what it is, right? Yeah. But I have to have like the boundaries and the confidence and really just the trust in God to be like, you know what, I can't do this right now. And so that's mine.
Yeah. Man, that is so good. Like I think when I was single or before I was met Ty, like I had to literally think like, okay, first of all, this man could be somebody else's husband. And then I think when I saw them as like, okay, these are actually people walking around that could also be somebody, this could be somebody else's husband, there was just another level of respect because I'm like, how would I want other women that are around my future husband right now to kind of be approaching them? And so there was just a level of respect because I was like, out of 99% of the men that are approaching me, there's only one man that's going to end up being the one. And so, yeah, but there was that legitimate need. You're saying like right now you're in a season where it is lonely. You just moved from Colorado to LA. And so the need is community. The need is having deep connection. You know what I mean? And so, and I'm not even gonna lie to you, that season of isolation for me was hard. Like it was one of the hardest seasons of my life because I was like, I was so used to having that person and having that sense of dependency, and I had to let it go, and it was heartbreaking. It was so hard, but like I would not change that season for anything because I'm like, I don't even know if I would be sitting here today if I hadn't let that go and allowed God to be God in my life. I would have probably gotten in way worse situations. And so it is literally worth the time. It's literally worth the time. By all means, find community, you know, find people that are really, really just about you. And, you know, it'll be hard for men to not to be attracted to you because you're beautiful.
You're a gorgeous girl.
You're beautiful. But things, all of y'all, okay? Every single one of you, okay? But yeah, but like it's find those people that don't even care about this. They care about this. And, you know, and really lean into that because it is still a legitimate need. And I believe that God will supply all of your needs because he knows exactly where you're at and exactly what you need. Yeah, for sure.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
What was the question? One more time. Run it back one more time.
Yeah, the cycle that you found yourself repeating in your life, and how are you learning to break it?
I feel like my cycle has to do with like negative thoughts and like talking myself out of good things, to be honest, because maybe it's like imposter syndrome or feeling like I'm not worthy of certain things. So I feel like, and sometimes even like, I know, Hillary, you were saying something about like, I think for me, like I'm having to remember like, what am I trying to say? Like, I think sometimes, you know how sometimes you go through something and, you know, like you get through it and then like you forget how you got through it the first time. So like, you know, we were talking about, you know, the devil using the same tools and stuff like that. Like he doesn't use anything new. And so sometimes like I'll get into a similar situation or another hard situation and like I'll forget like how I got through it another time, you know? So then it's like in this cycle of like, yeah, forgetting that like, oh, no, like God showed up for me in a situation, not exactly the same, but similar, you know what I mean? So I think like remembering how I got through things in the past or remembering, you know, like going back to, because I think sometimes like, okay, say we're in like a fight or in a struggle time, like the effort that we put in to get out of that. And then once we're out of it, I feel like sometimes we can slowly stop putting in that same effort. Like sometimes we really need those affirmations really, really bad. And then when we get to a certain space, sometimes we're like, okay, you know, we kind of start getting a little more lax because we feel like more solid. And then slowly but surely we start to, you know, veer off again and stop seeing ourselves the way that we should see ourselves. You know what I mean? And then we get to a low space and we're like, oh my God, okay, wait, how did I get out of it? Like, I think sometimes that's my cycle that I get stuck in. And so I feel like for me, it's like, okay, like don't let up ever. Even when you feel like you're confident, even when you feel like you're good, even when you feel like, yes, like you've gotten to the quote unquote other side of it. Like, yeah, but the only reason you're on the other side of it is because you've been implementing these things. If you stop implementing those things, you're not gonna be where you're at. So I think for me, I have to constantly remind myself like, no, you gotta keep this going. You have to be consistent with this. You can't just like, well, you know, I'm good now. So now I'm gonna spend a little less time doing this or spend a little less time with God or spend, that is a recipe for disaster every single time. Every single time I'm like, girl. And then, so I think that's the cycle that I found myself in that. And so now I'm in the space of currently like, okay, Taya, get back to your affirmations, get back to spending, you know, you need to schedule more time with the Lord. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's like, you have to pencil it in because our lives get so busy, you know what I mean? And, you know, you got job and friends and family and this and just taking care of your house. Like there's a lot. Life is a lot. But you have to make sure the same way that you feed yourself, the same way that you put on clothes and take a shower, spend time with the Lord. Like you have to make it like a necessity or spend time pouring into yourself and reminding yourself of how God feels about you. Like it's I need to do that just as much as I need to brush my teeth in the morning. You know what I mean? If not more. Well, no, brush your teeth though. I'm not saying no brush your teeth. Please brush your teeth.
With Colgate.
Please.
Sorry, can't say that.
Get it all.
I'm screaming tongue scrapers. Amazon. Period.
That wasn't a complete wash without the tongue. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's all really.
Man, I think that is a perfect place to land. By the way, we only got through 2 out of the 4 questions.
Stop.
But it's because there's so much, and this was so edifying. But I think that's a perfect place to land because what I really wanted to like address with the people that are watching is just like maintaining, you know, those things to keep you on a path of wholeness. And so I think that it's just really important to understand like where you got to, how you got to where you are now did take discipline. And it's just like anything else, you know, if you want a healthy body, you know what I mean? If you want a healthy mind and if you want a healthy spirit, you have to be consistent on your disciplines. You exercise the mind just as much as you exercise your body because the mind is probably more important than the body because the mind is where you go to first in order to even execute the things that you would need to do in your body. So if the mind's not healthy, the body won't be healthy.
Yeah.
So it's so important to keep those consistent practices alive. This has been such a great conversation, you guys. Thank you so much for your vulnerability. And is there any last pieces of advice that you would want to share with like people on how to kind of stay on the path of wholeness?
There's one thing like that was on my heart to share. When the word talks about love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength, I think like we have to understand what the heart is because the Bible says guard your heart above all else. For from it flows the well springs of life. And the heart's really about our emotions and our desires.
Yeah.
And how do we give our emotions and our desires to God?
Mm.
And when we're not doing that, you know, we talked about spending time with God. Like when we're not giving him our emotions, our desires, and asking him to show us what to do with them, then eventually our emotions and desires will affect our mind. They will start to contaminate our hearts, and they will start to weaken us. We won't have strength. So I think it's really starting in the heart of really inviting the Lord in. Even if we don't know what to say, we don't know what to do, we don't have practical things right away, God will give us divine strategy. So that's really, I think, the biggest takeaway of how do you surrender everything in your heart to God and trust that it'll have a ripple effect in the rest of your body?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. Yeah, because it's so true. Like if you haven't surrendered that area and that space to God, and he said there's a scripture that says like he'll give you the desires of your heart. But if you read it one way, it sounds like he'll give you your heart's desires. But it's like there's also a space where you can get to where he's actually going to give you the desires of your heart. And when your prayer is, God, give me what you want for my life and give me what you want for me, he'll do it.
Yes.
He will do it. If you really, truly mean that and you say that prayer, he will do it every time. So that was brilliant. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Love y'all. This was fun.
But I was like questioning if I should say it. Because I was like, is this even like a full thought? It might be really quick. I think sometimes, I know for me, before I really truly knew about wholeness, I thought like wholeness was like a destination, but it's not a destination. I think it's a constant journey that and I think it goes back to what I said in my previous like answer. It's a constant journey. It's a constant like practice, and it's a constant thing that you're always going to be like, you need the Lord to be whole. So like, if you don't spend that time with the Lord, you're not going to feel whole anymore. Absolutely. So I think that, you know, making sure that you're not seeing wholeness as like a destination or like, okay, now I'm whole. Like, no, you know what I mean? Or if you do feel like whole, it's because you did these things that made you, you know what I mean? Like, or, you know, like that made you feel whole or more healed and stuff like that. But I don't think there's ever a point where like, I'm just whole now.
For sure.
Or I'm just healed now. You know what I mean? It's work. It's constant work. So just, I think I would just say that.
Yeah. That's so important. That is so important for people to know. That's why I was like, it's a journey to wholeness. At the beginning of the conversation, like, it is not going to be, you're going to get there. Yeah. It is going to be, you're going to walk through it. Yeah. And we are all in it together. Yeah. Well, guys, this has been an amazing conversation. I hope that it really, really just allowed you to kind of think of some of the areas in your life that you want to pray on, that you want to reflect on. And we just hope that you find your community. We actually have a Discord. We're going to and if you don't know what Discord is, it's a place where you can come and chat with other people that are watching Generation 1. So we have the information below. Subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more videos, and follow our sis Hillary on Instagram to see more of her content. She's such a light. But we thank you. We're praying for you, and we'll see you guys next time.